Hello, everybody. Step by step, we're gonna start. In 2 minutes, I'm gonna start. So let's start. Today, I would like to share the insight and strategy, mostly related to optimizing your Jira Data Center architecture. It's quite easy to say the architecture, and architecture it means in the system level, more system architecture. What do we use? Let me start quite poor step. My name is Gonchik. I used quite a lot of different things, and let's keep it. It's quite things. Well, I would like to say the following item. First of all, don't trust me. If you make some decision, you have to double check, or you need to get some advice from professionals. Today's agenda will be the following items: architecture, load balancing. Unfortunately, I just had load balancer and relation database management system, which is used for keeping the real data and architecture, and what type of the stats, metrics, it will be good. Our event I will be mostly the discussion, but I think I will start explaining, and after that we can have the questions. Meanwhile, you can type the questions where you can type your questions in Russian and English, doesn't matter. Unfortunately, I don't know our language, especially the Chinese, Arabic, and our stuff, French, but I can use the AI to get the answer. So let's start. Main idea, design. And I put the special sticky session headache because nowadays quite interesting to hear about the different design, different architecture, but main big problem is related to the keeping the state. Everyone just saying, I just made something with stateless or stateful, and so we just starting to understand why some people just saying my software today is stateless, why is before it's happened the stateful. So main idea is splitting software. Before it was mostly the monolithic. Pros and cons is quite clear and known. You can Google it and you can find it. But shortly, let me highlight it. Monolithic sometimes is faster because everything one shot, and for the development can be complicated, and for operations can be the complicated the microservices architecture or streaming architecture, because you need to think how to do it. But in the monolithic side, and the development's starting to be quite complicated. You need to keep all dependency understanding. You need to have on the process level, I would say you need to have the mono repo instead of many repos, and step by step is going to be happening. Do you hear me? If you hear me, please click plus. Sorry, I forgot to ask. Yeah, good. So design is quite easy for Jira Data Center. We have the network, load balancer, node 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and shared database, shared file system to keeping the attachments. So please type how many nodes do you use today. At least for me, I prefer every time the 3. On some installation, I see the 5. For some installation, I have the 2. And for main hour installations, the 3. How about you? Artyom Novikov. How many nodes do you use? 1 or 2 or 3? or more? 1. Okay. Konstantin? Good. Active, passive. Let's start from the link. All my presentation will be included the links. Here you can read all documentation. I will share the presentation in needful slides. You can read why we need to have the clustered on multiple applications, how many it will be good, and source profiling. For example, if you go there, you can see for different profiling. You need to understand what type of usually the systems which are supporting or designing, usually it's a large or enterprise. The next level is naming is enterprise. Based on the Jira issues, custom fields, it's quite interesting, 1,800, but based on the guardrails, 1,200 is acceptable. It is fully recommended thing. I will have the meetup related to guardrails and share my opinion how it's reality it is works and helpful. And then you can find all needful information here. Of course, here there's everything starting with a single node, non-clustered. How to do it in reality between nodes is caching. For example, for Bitbucket is Hazelcast, for Jira Convs is each cache. For Bamboo, Hazelcast as well, as I remember. And usually everyone prefer to have the Amazon web services. They provide the already provided the IMEI file and also the needful all infrastructure as a code file, which is you can easily manage and scale your Jira in AWS. Quick start, for example, you can find based on the cloud formation, you can do all needful things and quite easy. You can find and you can set up. To be honest, I have set up on Jira AWS almost 2 years ago, and it was via Atlassian crowd, and step by step you can find. So let's back. Easy to say how many nodes. Usually I prefer to have the 3 nodes because it is quorum. What does it mean, quorum? Who knows what does it mean, quorum? It's a mathematical in related opinion. It is related to mostly the election. In computer science, you can quite easily to managing 3, 5 for distributed system, because otherwise you will have the issue related to the consistency data and efficiency of that. And then it's based on that you can go to the CAPT theorem and consistent partition tolerance and how it helps. I highly recommend you to read about that computer science site because it is quite needful. And also, if you're designing, sometimes single node gonna be much better, even multiple nodes. Do you have some opinion why it's gonna be happen like this? Why single node more stable, even 2 nodes, even 3 nodes? You can type, drop your idea. Feel free to drop. Okay. Rich functionality of the Jira, why it's happening. Our lovely website, marketplaceatlassian.com. This is my hint. Not network issues, honestly. No, of course, network issue is going to be happen if you have, let's say, network overhead. Yes, it's going to be if you have set up on the different data center. But in reality, if it's more than 200 milliseconds, 250, below the 250, it's okay. Doesn't matter. It's not big problem. The main idea, our marketplace, we have the customization. We have a lot of things. Troubles with cache and sync. It's a next step, but it's not fully. But your almost right. Big problem is related to based on the marketplace, based on your plugin development. You need to correctly leader selection. It's very good. I see the Kevin Kui have the good knowledge about quorum and scaling stuff. The big issues, if you can see, losing indexes, caching. Константин Терентьев, as I mentioned, indexes. But why it's happened? It is happened in reality. Plugin development. Most of the plugins was designed as a single node, and some of the coordinators, like Atlassian Scheduler API, you can do the scheduler jobs. It is a little bit job instead of Apache Quartz. It is like a next layer of the abstraction, will be helpful and quite easy to using what's going on. Because let me ask the quite easy question. You just wrote the listener, and do you know on which node that listener will work? Let's say in script runner, some of the guys like the script runner or Groovy runner or MyGroovy or GMWE, they provide as well. Also assets. Anyway, in any system, you just write the listener or scheduler with our name in the job or service. Do you know on which node will work? If you know, please type the plus. If not, you can type the minus. From my side, I have the request a lot of times. Requests I have none. I see quite a few people doesn't know. The main idea in new version of the Atlassian script run, they put on which node was run, but will run, we don't know. The main idea, why? Because they want to make them more stateless, but we need to have the opportunity to assigning in which node and managing. But it is additional abstract layer, sometimes they're complicated. Also, I hope someone I know but don't know how it use it. It is using the database as I mentioned, but how to use it. But you can, for example, easily to make them like a technical node. For example, you have the two, let's say, active nodes. One of the technical nodes were using the traffic. Sometimes good. Atlassian Cache, you can use them passive mode. If you remember Atlassian Cache, mostly in passive, not caching here, and make a synchronization in database, fetching the information and making the sanity checks. This is the main idea, and based on that Atlassian Cache, you can improve your usage of the apps, scripts, everything. It's quite interesting. Who knows LRU caching? If you know, please type me. Okay, let me Google and show list recent used, as you remember, list recently used cache, something like that. Oh, it's Redis, guys, is very good. In cache policy, cache replacement policy, usually the FIFO, LIFO, but more interesting fact is a LRU used a lot of place, and you can see how does it works. You put which was used, not replacing, but old one only replaced. And the time aware and our different most recently used, you can read different algorithm of the cache replacement policies, and this is a very needful, but mostly we're using the least recently used. This is quite simple implementation, but as a result, we can have the big problem with related to the caching. mind, especially if you're using the EDBI in our stuff, you will fully understand what's going on, how to improve. And also, if you do the plugins, don't forget to put that parameters, Atlassian Data Center status, compatible. This is the helpful, and once you build application, Java app, and you can, it will be prepare needful information. But in reality, if I use a 2-line of the code in your Atlassian plugin XML, and that's it, nothing special in the plugin info section. This is will help you easy to managing, and also here just showing compatible with data center. Also, they doing a little bit small changes on the OBR file or jar file level, and in the class you can see. Therefore, if you're doing the clustering, especially, don't forget not only reliable or availability or high availability or performance tuning, don't forget about that. Also the problem of the generating of the operations, because sometimes your code can make the big problems, especially in-house code. Marketplace based codes, it's usually double testing, everything is good. This is the main idea of the designing. Before going forward, you don't need to go increase number of the nodes, otherwise it's going to be the problem. I had seen, as I remember, most of the many nodes, it was 12 or 15 nodes, and it's quite big company, green company. It was very interesting to look on that, but sometimes it's not helpful because you will have the bottlenecks to a shared database and shared file system, especially shared database, because attachments is mostly the right only. So our designing is an interesting item, is a load balancing. If you remember, on the design I said sticky session headache. Here again I'm highlighting because we need to keep the state. This is the main idea. Otherwise, authentication issue. Otherwise, the keeping the session. Also, if you remember, personal access token for now the provided. It is helpful to understanding how to go to traffic. So, what type of the different solutions you can use for as a load balancer? Of course, if you are in the Kubernetes, you can use Ingress with Istio if you want. Also, you can adjust, add additional things like Envoy, something like that. But usually, in my experience, it is compile Nginx with sticky sessions, or you can replace it if you have the enough budget, Nginx Plus. Or you can use the HA proxy. HA proxy is a wonderful tool where you can put the without dancing, quite easy. Quite easy the scaling stuff. This is the main items. HPD, as usual, you can do by the Tomcat. Tomcat is a native application container. Also, they support the fully the sticky session, everything. HBD, also Apache, if you remember. F5, Cloudflare, AWS, ELB. Quite interesting stuff. You can use the links to double checking, but mostly in my experience, I'm using the Nginx, HA proxy, HBD, Cloudflare, and AWS. So next item based on our architecture was the weakness related to the relation database management. Oh, before going forward, what do you use? Please type for now. For one of the company I use for now the Nginx Plus compile text section, Nginx Plus, HA proxy. How about you, Nginx? Apache, very good. HA proxy, wow, Konstantin, lovely. For one of the company, I'm just using the Nginx Belief extension because the main idea, we don't have any access in the HA proxy, but we have the long chain of the proxies, HA and HA. Then we have the Nginx. Why? Because HA proxy need to be on your own management, then you can do it improvement. Okay. How about relational database management system? What do you use? What type of the relational database management system do you use on your Jira? Oh, I usually prefer PostgreSQL. Of course, I would say sometimes MS SQL is wonderful, fruitful. Oracle, nicely. Yeah. I see, guys. Some good options. So why I'm just mentioning also is quite interesting. Most of the in Atlassian you can find the special, very interesting information. Most of the Jira instance, including Cloudness, running on the PostgreSQL best for Jira. And I thought every time we have to better to use the PostgreSQL, but with PostgreSQL, yes, interesting stuff. That slide, not slide, the phrase was happened a few years ago, and a lot of companies, a lot of people in the community are just saying better to go to PostgreSQL because the vendor testing everything on the PostgreSQL, you will have a lower number of the weakness. And the weakness, I don't want to say the bugs, but let's say the weakness. This is my phrase. So, not so long time, during the investigation of the performance and scaling testing results, I detected that interesting stuff. Let me close our performance and scaling. I just scrolling. How does the move the performance scaling? How does the investigating everything? But here I'm just detecting MySQL. No PostgreSQL. No Aurora. Nothing. Testing in reality going to by MySQL. And then I would like to say for if you are using the MySQL and you want to go to PostgreSQL, if you have experience on the PostgreSQL and MySQL, no need to go. If you have the great experience in PostgreSQL, of course it's better, reducing the operational cost. But in our situation, it's no problem, no big problem, because performance testing do the MySQL. During the investigation, PostgreSQL, Aurora, PG, MySQL, different derivatives is very good. When I was younger, my RocksDB, Percona, it's lovely place, lovely things, but in almost the same thing. So I forgot to put one of the interesting stuff, NFS. For NFS, previously I have been used like NFS server as a software solution, and also on the hardware the solution like a DFS and the Hyper-V implemented, but usually it's not managed by me because it's a provider. Also the on the VMware vCenter, they have the, as I remember, CSI, something like that, they can provide you. Also the SHD can have the, I remember usually they provide also the NFS protocol, and then you can use it. But also the nowadays is a S3 like storage can be used for Jira, like a Minio. But I don't fully recommend you use the Minio, because some of the people in community just writing they had a lot of issue. But for AWS it works like a fruitful. This is the main things, because we can easy to scale. on the Tomcat containers, and then we investigated our weaknesses on the NFS and our stuff. And for example, for one company, I used the NetApp, which is provided the NFS endpoint. To me, it was very good. It's very nicely set up because no extra overhead, and the block-based and the snapshotting, versioning is very good. For now, in one of the company, we're doing the NFS server on the virtual machine, that virtual machine connected to the VMware goes quite over-engineering, but it's okay. Why is it over-engineering? Because you don't have the opportunity to check and test. No worries. It's mostly administrative issue. Then you know where is going to be the weakness and what you can scale. The main idea, you need to have the stats and metrics. I'm just prefer to start system stats, how many nodes, heap, code cache checking, how many time garbage collector counts. It's a very interesting point. Database size, needful to understanding table size. On application business stats, I mean, number of the tickets, workflow, monthly increase, user, active user, custom fields. Don't forget about guardrails. And for assets, you can find different things. Well, let me try to explain the different metrics, which is I use most on daily basis. For example, for me, the main interesting stuff error rate. Of course, latency and other stuff we can adjust, but not doesn't provide a lot of needful information, because if you're focusing on the logs, errors, you can improve performance much better even on the latency, because usually for the latency side, Atlassian do own job greatly, but sometimes I found if you want, you can find my articles in Hubber or Medium related to investigation in community@atlassian.com. And also the quite interesting stuff, once quite easily detected problem, just counting access logs by daily basis request. We detected one server was starting to be the onion node. If you remember last year, it was a lot of the CVEs, and then based on the access logs understood. But it's quite interesting how does it implement the onion node that installation and goes the traffic, and they're using the DNS protocol for routing the traffic, and it was a ciphered and our stuff. And one of the interesting stuff. By the way, this is the real graphics, which is I used, and euros for all requests. You can easy to understand, and error rate correctly. And then based on that, you can quite easily you can see active usage and error rates increasing. But in the same level on the backend side, you can see stable. But that installation better to improve backend error logs, and then you can see the effects, or you can reduce the effects. But usually in the morning, something problem with my pen. This is one of the graphics. Meanwhile, I will be happy if you drop some of the comments, some of the interesting questions, also some of the metrics that will be interesting for you. But one of the interesting. And as I mentioned, for latency, better to look into durations, because business metrics, it's sometimes interesting because you need to know how fast they're triggering the status, how fast to create the issue from the portal of the Jira Service Measure. Why? Because in reality, user experience starting the creating ticket, clicking, and commenting. And I use the main based things. That request happens. I remember once started working the T-Bricks, one of our director just asked me, Gonchik, I do a few things: creating, changing status, and commenting. All our stuff, of course, is good, but only these metrics will be created, will be nicely to me understanding. And if you look and observe that, you can cover 90% of the use of the Jira and performance. Therefore, was 2016. From that time, I'm just using only that graphics to understand what's happened understanding the health of the Jira installation. But of course, sometimes I'm not fast implementing, just looking and our stuff. Everyone wants to have the bread on the table. And then here you can see some durations in the milliseconds and how does it works. And if you can see, sometimes this add commenting super fast. It means I think no issue on the DB level, but quick create with some of the post functions or additional conditions can be happen. And for example, status change, it is you can investigate what happens, what type of the percentile, what happens, and you can understand some of the automation can be make the problem. This is the main idea, and which is correlating this one and this one, and you can quite easy to look. Also, quite interesting stuff is a push notification. A lot of guys that you starting to use a lot of services push notifications. It is the application. Also good to know what's going, how fast they're providing, because each push notification generating in reality the additional network connection additional the descriptor, and then you can have the weakness. Therefore, you need to have at least 2 nodes to splitting. If you have the more than, based on my experience, if you have the more 3,500 or 5,000, better to have the more than 3 nodes. But in reality, you can quite easily to manage with 3 nodes 30,000 active users quite easily. And also the attachment creation, if you can see, it's the spikes, quite interesting to look like with the spikes. Why? Because if you can see with spikes only related after investigation, you can find only related a few items, which is included additional validation based on the script runner, and then it is the slowness happen there, and it is expected. But in reality, it's not a lot, 20 milliseconds, nothing special. We can drop off. Sometimes some of the guys are starting the searching and mentioning the users. It is a REST API endpoint, and quite easy to look, because nowadays a lot of the users mentioning about that, and I just started to investigate. Service desk REST loading, you can endpoint usually, and inside nowadays is assets for Jira, how it is opening the custom fields. It's very interesting because it is related to user experience. Also, some of the people prefer to put into a behavior, something interesting. Agile boards for software development teams, they are annoying and it's better to look. And of course, assets for REST endpoints is helpful. Also, I like it to look into the behaviors. If you can see, the spikes was the issue. If the behaviors was written the more than 30 kilobytes, it's a quite fresh logs, quite fresh the screenshots, and you can find. And understanding JMW, just quite mostly the used plugins. And also I like it to use the to check counters, because sometimes you can investigate which is not quite frequently used. Because, for example, if you improve the performance of 10,000 times used executed items, and you improve it 10 milliseconds versus which is executing 10 times, 100 times, but which is works like a 500 millisecond, you improve it till 100 millisecond, efficiency will be with 10 milliseconds. Unfortunately, because it is the statistics, you can multiply it and you can compare the results. This is the main idea, and don't forget that simple logic of improvements. And my main stats I like to use: get, post, put, and understanding how it's going. Because usually I have been detected interesting a lot of the post requests during the correctly. It was interesting to find how's the name, brute force attack it was, and it was increased during the CV and detected. It's very interesting. It's why it's quite easy to super simple, stupid counters and investigating. Responses per minute by code. It's helpful to understanding how exactly responding your load balancer and fetching the information from the backend, and then you can quite easily to understand, because sometimes you're just looking. We have 500 euro code on users, and some of the users starting to annoy. But for example, 10 users, you starting to, oh, I have the big problem. You start 11 people, but if you have the 30,000 active users, you can understand it's nothing, and something it is the mostly the automation side. This is the interesting stuff. And you can see here the response time have increased till the 7 seconds. You can investigate where, and the response codes are the same. It is mostly issued on the client side, between client and load balancing side. This is the main explanation of that, and the responses per second, and understanding how the increase in the period, the usually the same is going to be, and daily basis is goes up, goes down. I just checked in the different distributed companies, and with open things, and based on that I do the different things. Thanks a lot. I will be happy if you ask question. If not, I will set up the next meeting, next meetup with based on your questions. If I don't know, maybe if I need to explain mostly the better and clear. Thank you. If you have the question, please drop some questions. Okay, next time I would like to share my knowledge with experience of updating 9.12 and assets for Jira troubleshooting, sizing, detecting issues. Where do the metrics come from, proxy or from database? It's very interesting. This one is come from the proxy, because you can see, you can find. Let me find. Here you can find the different for Nginx configuration, for HA proxy, for HTTPD. You can quite easily to getting. Of course, varnish, how to caching, you can find in my blog. If you need, I can move that article into a Medium. It will be much more easy to visible and findable. For database, I use it from some of the durations I'm using, and also on the, I didn't provide here the stats, as I mentioned. I hope that I have answered for your questions. Evgeny, Kevin, how do you handle session transfer for when node goes to down? If this work of the load balance or sticky session set on each node? It's very interesting to question. Sticky session, it is put in reality the JSession ID. Let me find the easy to traffic routing. Check. I don't see it fastly. Okay. Here you can see how does it works. Ingress for Kubernetes. In reality, it is put that sessions and showing which node and where, but how to handle. On the load balancer, you switch off one node and wait, and the customers will go to another node. And what does it mean? It means you can do your job, because you put as a maintenance that node and you can do everything. But once you enable it, if sticky session will be persist. For example, let's imagine some of the user goes to lunch and after that return back, then they can use it. But I have some of the not quite well experience, I would like to say, because I didn't find by MP correctly great timings, the timeout of the sessions. I put usually on the load balancer. You need to understand better to put the 50 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 seconds, because once I put the 5 seconds or 1 seconds, it's starting to be like a domino. One of the not lagging and didn't get the response in shortly, going to the now not. And then I remember once I make it down big cluster because the timeout of the responding and failing and rerouting, it was quite short. After that, I just prefer to a little bit longer, like 15 seconds or 30 seconds. It sounds like a crazy timeline, but in that time, the user is looking the problem, waiting or clicking. Not if we use the clicking a lot of faster, quite often the F5, the refresh, is not affecting me. But if you a little bit more, is a little bit waiting, refresh it will goes. And it is like a tricky stuff, but I use that trick from of the guys with naming Beidou load balancing tricks, as I remember. I don't remember. I was on the conference, I spoke, I shared my problems, everything. It was good. By the way, I had previously very good opportunity to visit different conferences. I will be happy if someone suggests me to visit some conference. I will be happy to find some company will be helpful to me find and visit some conference. Nowadays, I don't have any opportunity for now. Sticky set on the each node, sticky sessions by design is enabled because it's a core requirement. I hope I have answered, Kevin, for your questions. And that work is mostly the load balancing. Good. If you have the other questions, please answer. Please ask me. If not, I will share that recorded video on YouTube, if you don't mind. Thank you. Thank you for visiting. And next week we will speak about the conference and tuning. Tuning and especially our stuff. JVM tuning, I will be happy to share. JVM tuning, troubleshooting, it's very interesting stuff. And as I wrote, assets for Jira, sizing, I forgot to put detecting any issues. Okay, I will set up. It will be on my side. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good day.